Hello?
Hello.
Oh, she's working. Okay, great. I'm trying a new headset out, so I was like, I'm not really sure how it's gonna work, how it's gonna sound, but we're good. You can hear me.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Amazing.
Alrighty. Let's just jump into it.
Do it.
Okay, so welcome back, my spooky scaries, to another spine-tingling episode of the Final Pod, where I talk all things spooky all the time. I'm your host, Ezra Rivers, and today we're diving deep into the blood-soaked worlds of My Bloody Valentine 3D and Sorority Row, two cult horror classics. And I'm joined by my very special guest, Matthew Preston, or as I know him as Maddie.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fantastic and I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you, really. I was, I'm not gonna lie, when I got the message, I was like, wait, what? Like, I had no idea. Like, I've known you for what, almost 2 decades now? Like,
Almost.
so yeah, it's like 14 years. Well, plus 14 plus.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, we've known each other since I was 16, I think I started where we used to work.
Oh my God. I
I
think
know.
I know. That was ages ago. Time is just flying.
Yeah, it really does. But they say time flies when you're having fun, and I'm just trying to find out where the fun is or where the fun comes in.
Where was it? Where was the fun?
Where to go? Because unless it was those long nights where I don't remember, I guess that's where the fun went.
Exactly.
But yeah, so we've known each other for let's just say over a decade. I don't know the
Yeah,
exact amount of years, but it's
correct.
been over a decade. I know you've acted since I've known you, actually.
Yeah.
Um, but I did not know that you were part of these two um, cult classic horror movies, which is really interesting.
Right. And they were remakes of the original cult classic horror movies.
Yeah, which is so interesting, right? Because I feel like especially when we get remakes, a lot of people kind of forget where the source material comes from. And it's interesting. I'm a remake lover. I can't lie. I grew up in the 2000s, so really most of my horror experiences are from remakes. But throughout my life, I've gone back and watched the originals, and most of the times I prefer the originals to the remakes, simply because, well, one, I think horror movies really give a testament of like the time that they're shown in. Horror today is very new age, so everyone has an iPhone, and then they kind of figure out how the iPhone can't call the police, which is beyond me. But a lot of the classics like Black Christmas and When a Stranger Calls, all these kind of really, we have nothing to do but fight or die, and I love those. I hold the classics very special to um to my heart. But I'm gonna give you a moment. People who are listening kind of know me already, so I want you to take a moment, introduce yourself, talk about your horror experience, both on and off screen. And yeah, you have the floor.
Great. Well, my name is Matthew Preston. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I do currently live in New York City. I was so lucky back in 2008. I was fortunate enough to be able to work on both My Bloody Valentine and Sorority Row. Actually, My Bloody Valentine 3D. That was so much fun because I was Jensen Ackles' stand-in, and then for Sorority Row, um, not to spoil anything, but to spoil it, the very, very, very last scene of Sorority Row, where the gardener is violently holding, I want to say a knife or was it a knife or like a shovel? Those are my hands.
Wait, really?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
No way. Okay, first of all, I'm gonna stop you right there just for one quick second because you were the stand-in for Jensen Ackles, correct?
I was, and it was my first stand-in gig, and I was so nervous because I didn't. I mean, they kind of tell you the casting's like, okay, here's what you do, but I learned so much from the crew and the cast and everyone else. But Yeah, that was a really big, like, okay, here's your first time doing it, and by the way, you're the lead, like you're the stand-in for the number one.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine like I don't want to say like the amount of pressure, but yeah, the amount of pressure to like stand in for Mr. Jensen Ackles. I mean,
Yeah.
Dean Winchester himself.
Yeah.
So, can you tell me a little bit about like what a stand-in really is there for, and kind of like what your job is to do besides, the obvious like stand in? So, like, did you have to like were you standing in as far as like for certain scenes,
Oh,
or is
all
it
of them.
just, oh, that's
Yeah,
so cool.
so basically anything that Jensen was needed for. Um, as Jensen's getting ready, second team, the second team crew is we're setting up the shot. We're setting up. We're with the crew. They're getting the camera ready. They're getting lighting ready. They're getting the sound ready. They're getting everything. And if it was an action shot, which of course that movie had so much action in, we would have to kind of do the steps with them. So it was just as first team's getting ready, second team sort of helping to set up the shot and the scene.
Got it. So you're kind of helping with like camera blocks and
Yeah,
all this, how he's gonna look in certain lighting and all that kind
yeah.
of stuff.
And of
That
course
is
and I love when he would give me notes. He's like, "For second team, I'm doing this," and it's like, "Okay, thank you. I'm
I,
noted."
I was gonna ask you, so like you obviously work close with first team as well, so you're kind of getting to know like the leads and the mains as well as, second team and more so crew, correct?
Um, it's kind of a mix. I feel like, of course, with being second team, you are with the crew mostly. But first team, you have to, something might happen where you have to let first team know, oh, by the way, they're doing this. Oh, so it's good to have a good rapport with them. And
Got
Jensen was
it.
amazing. In the beginning, I just remember he was very quiet and to himself, and I was like, who is this guy? Because I didn't really know much of him. And towards the end though, he was so nice, he was so fun and just funny and just a really good guy.
That is, that's amazing. First of all, I have had a crush on Jensen Ackles since
Right? I mean, come on now.
forever.
He has like classic movie star good looks, and he's just mixed in with a really nice personality. I'm like, okay, Mr. Dreamboat, I see how you got here.
Like it all makes sense now. We see why you are where you are, and we congratulate you on that.
Exactly. And also I saw how you acted around because this was all shot in Pittsburgh when before I moved to New York in 2009. And so of course there was a lot of fans who would show up and he would just be really nice and sign autographs and take photos with everyone and I thought that was really cool.
That's awesome. I love that we're getting kind of like a first-hand experience with an actor, because I feel like a lot of times they get bad reps, especially when it comes to fans. It's like
Yeah.
if they don't stop and take the picture and sign 20 million autographs, they're labeled like an
Difficult.
a-hole, or yeah, or difficult, or whatever the case may be. But that's, I love that. And I love that for you, because if I was even 5 seconds near him, I'd probably lose my
I will say the very, very first day that we ever did anything it was just the second team. First team hadn't arrived to Pittsburgh yet. So it was like Jamie King stand in, it was the Miners stand in, it was whoever, I'm trying to think of who else would have been there. But we were in the warehouse with the crew, and because it was shot in 3D, which at the time, which I think it was like '07, '08 was when that sort of started the 3D phenomenon. They really wanted to see what it would look like, what the shots would look like for 3D. So we got to do really fun things, interactive things. Like it would be like, okay, now Matthew, look at the camera, and there's the miner behind you, and then can you put your hand towards the camera and slowly bring it back? Or I remember they had Jamie stand in like she had to like smash a blood-stained windowsill or something. It was really fun. It was so much fun because it was new to everyone that we were filming in 3D.
Yeah, I vaguely remember like the kind of turn of technology. I'm a 90s baby. I was born in 93. So I kind of seen, I've seen like both ends of the spectrum where it was like pre-technology to where we were still using like phones on the wall. I remember I had like my phone right next to the kitchen, or where we finally started getting cell phones, but you can't call until after 7 because you're gonna waste all your minutes. So I think it was really interesting to see the shift in the horror genre as well. And I think 3D movies, as far as for horror, have kind of taken the back seat for it. Um,
Mhm.
I don't think it was very well received. I
No.
know that like My Bloody Valentine 3D, if I remember correctly, wasn't like a huge hit to where it was like, blockbuster, multi-million dollar earnings, whatever the case may be. And then I remember that we had like, I think it was like one Final Destination movie in 3D.
Number four.
Yeah,
But
which was
number four.
also like it I so I feel like when it comes to horror, everything needs to be very specific when it comes to 3D, right? So like My Bloody Valentine 3D did it well in the sense of kind of, if I'm correct, there's a scene where like the miner throws the axe and
Yeah,
that like yeah, and that like kind of flies at you. So that's cool and all, but I think when it relies too much on it is when it loses the audience with like Final Destination, if I'm correct, had like every single death scene in 3D.
yeah, it really. Also, I think because they were trying to bring back what was done in the 80s with Friday the 13th 3D Part 3 3D or Jaws 3 3D. And by the way, Friday the 13th, the original 1980 was and is my favorite scary movie because I remember I was 7 years old. I was thinking that I was watching an episode of Murder She Wrote. Well, let me tell you, when Jason pops out of the water and grabs Alice from the canoe, that literally gave me a heart attack at the age of 7. And I was afraid I would have nightmares that Jason was coming to get me. Like it was, that stuck with me. So and that actually it was the 0809 was when they redid Friday the 13th. And I remember I was so like at that time I was like I'm gonna try to get on everything. And I think I sent like an email or I tried to send like an email to somebody. I'm thinking like a blank email, hoping to get cast in it. And then I ended up getting Friday or My Bloody Valentine 3D. It was really the manifestation that really kind of was funny.
That is that's so amazing. Like I love hearing people's stories about like manifestation, and I'm very into like universal energy and all that stuff, and I really believe that like you get what you put out. And it's funny that you tried to get Friday the 13th and ended up getting My Bloody Valentine, which was like
Yeah,
a
and also
3D aspect of what your first horror movie experience off screen was, which is
right.
really cool.
And it's sort of going back to what you were saying, I think that with horror movies, you also have to think of what it's going to be like after the 3D. So,
Yes.
how are you going to watch it when they put it on sci-fi? Or how are you going to watch it when it's I remember I think they gave 3D glasses in the DVD cases, oh DVDs. You remember
Oh my
those?
God. I was
Maybe
just gonna
maybe
say, I was just gonna say, I actually think, if I am correct, that I had the My Bloody Valentine 3D DVD, and I do believe it came with the glasses. But I'm also one of those moviegoers that if I'm going to see a 3D movie, call me corny, call me lame, I take those 3D glasses home. You're never gonna know when you're
oh
gonna need
yeah.
them again.
Oh yeah, totally. No, definitely. And the director of My Bloody Valentine 3D, Patrick Lussier, who it was just his birthday recently, so happy birthday, Patrick.
Happy birthday,
He
Patty.
is also the editor for Scream 1, Scream 2, Scream 3, and I maybe want to say Scream 4. So I knew it was going to be pop out, jump. I remember one time we were setting up a shot and I was in the van and he was looking in, we were setting up a shot and I said to him, you know, I went to go see Scream 3 in the theater, and I jumped pretty much every 5 to 10 minutes. He's like, "Yep, I did my job right." He's such a good editor, so I knew that with him at the helm of this project, it was going to be huge. And speaking of numbers, I think that it came into like number 3. I do know that it wasn't like it was a success, but it wasn't like a smashing success. But it did do better than like it made its money back internationally in the end. I do remember that.
See, you learn something new every day, everyone. This is the key learning moment because I feel as though, then again, I was younger at the time and I wasn't really as into, like, I'm never really a numbers person. I feel like, especially when it comes to movies, especially when it comes to horror movies, it's very subjective to the audience, right? You know,
Mhm.
you're gonna have people who love horror who are literally gonna take any horror movie they can get and say, "Wow, I loved it." Even if it was just like one kill scene, loved it, great, give us a sequel, give us a franchise. And then you're gonna have those people who are like, I like horror, it's cool. You know, I'll see it if I see it. If my friend wants to go, I'll join them. And then you kind of have like the people who just love movies in general and not
Mhm.
necessarily the subject of horror. So I feel like everything with entertainment and media is so subjective to the audience that takes from it. And I just remember at the time that, and I don't know if it was the 3D stuff about it, but it, I remember people being like, "Meh, it's okay." Like it was fun. It was a little ride that we went on, but I didn't really love it. I mean, I know I liked it more watching it later versus in the theaters. Um, I remember going to see it, and so admittedly, 3D kind of gives me a headache. I can't.
Yeah, there's no secret in that.
Yeah, so it's like it kind of gives me a headache. So if I can stay away from 3D as best as I can, I will. But it's funny when you watch a movie that was supposed to be seen in 3D out of 3D,
Yeah.
right? And that actually happened to me the other day. I'm currently rewatching like the Final Destination franchise, and I watched the one that was supposed to be in 3D, like not in 3D, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, the green screen and the editing, like you can just see it all without the glasses on.
Yeah.
But for My Bloody Valentine, I think why I liked it is that it worked off of 3D as well. And I think that was something that they did very smart and strategically because you can watch the film either way and still enjoy it 100% for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
And first, okay, I'm gonna stop right here because we kind of jumped into everything. And anyone who don't know what doesn't know what My Bloody Valentine is, um, so My Bloody Valentine 3D was a 2009 remake of the cult classic. It's set in the mining town of Harmony. The film follows Tom Hanniger, who is the phenomenal Jensen Ackles, who returns to town years after causing a tragic accident in the local mine. As Valentine's Day approaches, a mass killer begins a brutal spree, targeting those responsible for the past tragedy. We talked a lot about the 3D effects, um, and there's a lot of intense gore, I will say. There's a lot of. Um, it's not a traditional kind of slasher where it's like, oh, here's a butcher knife, let's stab this person, stab that person, whatever the case may be. But it definitely delivers on the thrills and chills in equal measure. It's a heart pounding ride that will leave you gasping for breath until the very end, with an amazing performance by Jamie King, who I absolutely will support that woman until she's like, I'm
Oh, me too.
done.
My
And sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say my best memory I have two good memories of Jamie King. The first time I officially met her, because I was standing in, and then they placed her, took her stand in out, and then placed her in there. She's like, "Hi, I'm Jamie." I'm like, "Hi, I'm Matthew." Then she was like, "You have the most beautiful eyes ever. They're like blue gemstones," and I'm just like, "Oh my God, Goldie from Sin City, please keep going." And then towards the end, I think it was the very last day that we were filming, she came up. I was listening to my iPod Nano,
Oh
if
my
you
God.
remember those. And
Yes.
she taps me on the knee, and I'm like, oh my God, my music was too loud. What did I do? And she goes, I just want to let you know you are so photogenic. Whatever you do, just keep it up. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, you again with the compliments. I can't. So she was very nice. And yeah, everything beautiful, nice. The whole cast was amazing. They were just fantastic to work with.
And that makes me so happy because, as I mentioned earlier, you have these idols that you look up to, and you're like, oh, I just hope you're nice. Like, I get you're rich, I get you're famous, I get that comes with an ego, but please just be nice to me. And truthfully, as I said, I will support Jamie King in any and every project. I think she's so, so perfect for the horror genre. Not only does she have she has that kind of star quality that she can blend into any sort of role, right?
Yeah.
Because you have her in My Bloody Valentine. She's this kind of, I don't want to say ditzy because she's definitely not ditzy and she's not dumb, but she has this very like girl next door who's like, you can see the hint of badassery like in her
Yeah.
face. And then
Yeah.
when like shit gets going, she's good. Like she's got it, she's running, she's screaming, she's fighting back. But then you have you seen Black Summer on Netflix?
No.
Oh my God. So I'm so sad it was canceled, but it has two seasons and she's in both of them.
Now
It's
I gotta
a,
check it out.
yes, please. It's like post-apocalyptic zombie, um, kick ass. Like it's so good. Like I was hooked to the screen and she plays the lead in that as well. And she's a mom, so you just see like how she can really adjust to any sort of horror role that she's given. And I love a good final girl, but I love a good final girl who can be other final girls, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, totally. And I remember her stand-in, or sorry, her stunt double, Melissa, throwing herself out the window on the second floor of the house when she's trying to get away from the miner, and just watching it because she was just first off the stunt department with Chris Cornell, rest in peace. I mean, they were just so it blew my mind at how fearless they were. And I guess you have to do the stunts, but she was just like, oh, you want me to full-fledged just throw myself out?
Hello? Oh no. I think I lost Maddie. Matt? Okay. I think we lost Maddie for a second. It's okay. This is all part of the process. We try to get Matt back. Um, he was talking about like stunt doubles and these stunts in horror movies. Hello.
I'm back.
We found you.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
What was the stunt department? Did you hear me talk about how amazing the stunt department was?
Yes, you got cut off where you said that she was like throwing herself out a window.
Yeah, it was just insane. And then I also remember there was another stunt where the van flips over, and they didn't mean to, but they actually Chris, who he kind of like was the stunt guy for everybody. He flipped the van. It rolled two or three times, and they had me.
Guys, we're gonna give Maddie a second. And I'm not even gonna edit any of this out.
Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna edit any of this out. I love this.
Yeah.
It's just so real.
Good. And I will. So something else. about that production was the special effects, because you talked about gore, and I remember at that time when they were bringing back horror movies in the 2000s, a lot of the complaints that they were getting, or the audience members were saying, it was like there's not enough gore, because you had like prom night and it was just suspenseful but it wasn't gory enough, or the same for When a Stranger Calls, the '06 remake. And I think that the audience, what they really enjoy about slasher movies, me included, is the gore factor. So they really gored it up. I remember that was one of the notes where they were like, this movie, it's going to be, the word bloody is in the title, just like in the original. And they
Yeah,
really, they gored it
yeah,
up.
they gored it up.
And there was, before we were shooting in an alleyway of where they filmed the supermarket scene.
Oh, I
The
love that
alleyway was just,
scene.
it was just, there was nobody, there was no crew members or anything, except for it looked like the actress Megan Boone, from Blacklist. She looked like she was just like bending over, and she looked like she was really sad, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, what's going on? Like, I kind of wanted to go over and be like, oh, are you okay? I go over to what I thought was Megan, but it was a dummy of her dead body.
Yes,
And
yes.
I was
I
just
think.
like, I'm talking to a dummy. And oh my gosh, it was, yeah, that department, the special effects crew, it was just, they knew what they were doing. They were just like blood it up.
And I'm actually very glad that they did, and I'm glad that you brought up the early 2000s kind of steering away from gore and then realizing that it needed it because. And I'm glad you brought up When a Stranger Calls and Prom Night actually because those are, if you want, like, I don't want to say cheesy, right? Because I don't think gore or blood make or break a horror movie because if you watch When a Stranger Calls, you still get that entire atmosphere.
I
But
just watched that for the first time, I think maybe like 6 months ago in like October. I'd never seen it before. But when
what?
I know, but when those movies were doing well and the audience was going to see it, that's when it gives way for, okay, there's a market, and they're gonna want to, let's bring back some more classics. And I think that that's another reason why back My Bloody Valentine.
And it worked, right? Like
Oh yeah.
they because like I think prom night again, another one. I love it for what it's worth. It's very much of its time, like we spoke about. I mean, like you mentioned with like the lack of blood and the lack of gore and kind of where horror was going at the time because again, horror is subjective, right? You have those
Yeah.
hardcore people like myself who are like, yes, rip her eyeball out, like punch her so hard that her head falls off, OG Jason, like and give me that. And then but then you also have other people who kind of want to walk into a horror movie and get that feeling of like unease more so than the gore and the blood. And I
Yeah.
feel like early 2000s movies really have more of the ick factor in like the my skin is crawling kind of thing because if you watch When a Stranger Calls, you kind of never want to be home alone again, right?
No.
Or babysit or do anything of that nature because they leave you with those feelings of like, okay, we didn't see him snap her neck and rip her tonsils out, but
We knew.
we knew that that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think there's those two crowds, right? It also goes to the same with like jump scares. Like there's people who really, really want a horror movie that's like jump scare from beginning to end. And then there's the ones who are like, we could kind of do without the jump scare every 5 seconds. And I'm
That's me. Because I
me too.
literally, if I have to watch it with my, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like,
And I feel like with me too, like I can call a jump scare from a mile away, truthfully. Maddie, I lost you again. Hello.
Yeah, and it's just like I'm always if I have to like look at it with my eyes closed, I'm like, am I watching the movie or am I just really scared?
And it's like, am I watching the movie or is the movie watching me?
Exactly.
And I mean, there's different aspects of it. Um there's different crowds for every different type of horror genre, which I like it. It's fun. It gives you diversity, let's say. But My Bloody Valentine was definitely fun. It was it was a wild ride. It was something that was very much needed, like you said, with like the gore and the blood and all that kind of stuff. So I
Yeah.
loved it.
Also, you have the people who loved it, the original. You know, they probably were going to go and see and say what they liked about it or what they didn't like about it. And with that, I'd never seen the original until I was working on the remake. So I watched the original probably on YouTube. They probably had it on YouTube. And I would be a little know-it-all on set and be like, "Oh, is there going to be a hot dog scene? Oh, are you who is the killer still the same as before?" And they're like, "Yeah, we know you watched the original." Like, um, and I think that also something that I loved so much about working on that movie was well going to see it first off because it Pittsburgh had a little Pittsburgh premiere, and on the night that it premiered, there was a blizzard. So we trekked a blizzard, drove through a blizzard to go see the movie, and even though I knew what was going to happen, I was still jumping out of my seat because that's what Patrick his editing is just so fantastic like that. And I the ending kind of came to me. I didn't know because I remember we did the scene. They were like, I think I like Jensen's supposed to come up through the mine and showing that he survived. And I was like, this gave way to a sequel. I'm like, I wanted a sequel so bad. Oh, it would have been so much fun.
Wait, now that you say that, he does survive.
He does. And I so the first time that we did that, I didn't know. I was just like running and they were like, "Wait, where's Preston? Where is he?" And I'm like, "I'm right here." They're like, "You did it too fast. Go back and do it again." It's like, you know, he's coming come to the camera very slow. Give it like 20 seconds and I was like, "Oh, this is the ending that they're going to go with." And it's like, you know, oh, he's still alive. He's going to so if you think about it, he's the miner Tom survived and he's still out there.
I know, that's so crazy. I will say though, um, I didn't see it coming. So also, quick little spoiler alert: if you haven't seen the movie, go
Oh,
see
we're
it.
spoiling. Yeah, we're spoiling
Yeah,
everything.
I was gonna say, if you haven't, I'd say pause this podcast right here. I'll give you about 2 seconds and go watch the movie, and then resume from here again. But um, I think the reveal of Tom being the miner was so it was I feel like it was very different, and I think this is kind of when like the twists and turns in horror really took its form, where you have this main character, you see them surviving everything, and then you kind of piece together and it's like, wait, but where was he when this happened? Where was he when this happened? Oh shit, it's
Yeah.
him. And
That's
I
what I
love
love.
that.
I love that about a good horror movie with the whodunits. Scream does it so well because you're just like, oh, I think it's gonna be them. It's gonna be her. Oh, I'm calling it. Me and my roommate, when we watch movies, especially horror movies, we're always in like at least 10, 15 minutes in. I'm calling it. It's the dad. The dad's the
Oh,
killer.
me too.
You know, and we like I was right. I was right. And yeah, so pause it because we're gonna spoil something else. The original
Yes.
killer is different from the remake killer, which
I remember that. Yes.
I think I was gonna I asked like the script supervisor Jan. I was like, why did they do that? Like, why didn't they just go with the original? And I think she was like, because they wanted to mix it up. There's probably like different versions out there. I think there was a version, I could be wrong, where like both Sarah and Tom were the killers. Killers were the minors together, but maybe it just didn't make sense with Sarah being the killer.
Oh, I would have been pissed off.
Yeah, yeah,
I would have been so pissed off. Not only because, like I said, and I said since this started, but Jamie Kingston here, everyone. Hi, it's me. I love her. But I think it would have been very much like Screamy, where it's like the two killers versus one. Like, I love a final girl that's a final girl. You
yeah.
know,
I agree.
I think they're fun when you bring in the final girl is like the killer sometimes and it works sometimes, but with her being such a focus in the film, I don't think it would have made sense because and then you would have had to say something where it's like, oh, he was only attacking her and they're actually lovers and he was never really going to hurt her. And then it kind
Yeah,
of removes everything that she's been through in the movie.
it worked in Scream 4. Spoiler alert,
Yes.
haven't seen Scream 4. Like it worked in Scream 4, but yeah, I'm glad that how they went with that. And also the crew and the cast behind it, they were and are such true horror fans that the co-writer Todd Farmer, who he's just, oh my god, he's amazing. And I remember I met him and I said, oh, I loved you in Jason X. He's like, thanks. And then the next day he came up to me, he goes, did you really like Jason X? Like, did you actually really know that was me? And I was like, of course, I'm a horror buff. Like, yeah, and I do love Jason. Like, it's Jason X. I mean, it's Jason. Jason is Jason. So I thought that was just being surrounded. It was just so much fun. It was from like May to June. I remember I celebrated my birthday, and they got like it was one of like the sound department's birthdays as well. So we like shared a cake. It was just such a great experience. I still have pictures and photos, and they gave us like screenshots from like the film, and it was just one of those things that I'm just so happy to have been a part of.
That is so awesome, and I really want to see those pictures. So if you find them,
They're
please
on
send
my
them to me.
Facebook. I'm so sure they're on my Facebook.
Oh, now I'm gonna
But
do a deep dive.
you have to like dig into the archives because it's all the way back from like 2009.
Oh, that's fine. I'm an FBI agent on Facebook. If I need to be, I will find these pictures and I will repost them. So, okay, so we've gushed and talked, no pun intended, with the gush about My Bloody Valentine 3D. Now let's get into Sorority Row. So, Sorority Row is a 2009 horror film that puts a deadly twist on the college sorority experience, which, just a little tidbit, I didn't go away for college. And after watching this movie and other college-based horror movies, I'm very glad that I didn't because I can't do it. I can't do it. After a prank goes horribly wrong, a group of sorority sisters find themselves stalked by a mysterious killer who will stop at nothing to seek revenge. My first question for you is, did you go away to college?
I did. I went to Penn State University.
Oh, we love that. Shout out Penn State. And was a mass serial killer ever a fear for you?
No. No, not. I mean, I feel like anything could be a fear for anybody, but that particular, unless it was like Jason or something, Jason comes to like college, like Jason
Well,
takes on Penn State, then yes.
okay, I will say note to any directors, writer, producer that comes across this podcast, please give Matthew credit for Jason Goes to College. That's all I'm gonna say.
Here you go.
And with Sorority Row, it blends suspense, humor, and plenty of scares to create a modern slasher masterpiece. The kills were definitely insane in this one. Again, pause the podcast, go watch the film because we're getting into spoilers. But I mean, come on, that bottle scene.
Oh, I know.
I believe it was the therapist office,
Yes.
right? I think she was talking to her therapist. Well, she thought she was talking to her therapist.
She was sleeping with her therapist.
Oh, yes, she was.
And then that's how it, so she wasn't so good. There's, like one of those, you're committing one of the cardinal sins which is like sex and hooking up, and like that person's probably gonna get it.
And I actually love that. And I love when horror puts a spin on the old horror tropes that kind of built these franchises and these films of like a Scream obviously is shout out to Scream because they gave us the rule book. But don't have sex, don't say I'll be right back.
Yeah.
The killer's always someone that that kind of stuff. And to see, I mean, I think that bottle scene really has stuck with me to where even when I drink anything from a glass bottle, I'm like, please, everyone stay away from me because if you
Right?
accidentally hit me and this bottle goes down my throat, I'm gonna be very, very mad. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's definitely a wild ride kind of movie. It puts you in the sorority, the college campus world, and then just kind of shoots you straight forward. There's a lot of twists and turns, and I know for me, it definitely kept me guessing until like that final terrifying showdown. And I will say, if you haven't seen the movie, go see it, Sorority Row 2009, and just wait for that finale because that finale was something. It was something. I think it's another one that kind of kept me on my toes till the reveal, which was, I think it was the boyfriend, right?
So, yes, it was the boy. It was the boy. It wasn't like it was the boyfriend who had a long distance relationship with the final girl.
Yes, but wasn't he also sleeping with, I think, the first Audrina Patridge, I think the one that was
Which, by the
killed.
way, like that was the whole because the Hills was huge at that time, and since
Love
they
the
got
Hills.
her to be like the first girl killed in the prank, because in the original, the headmistress mother was killed in the prank.
Yes, I remember that.
And funny enough, so at that time as well, I think like between 2007 to 2010, 2009, I was co-hosting a radio show or like a podcast with Neville J. Lay. Shout out to him. It was called Buzzworthy Radio. It's still going on, I think. And we had on Eileen Davidson, who of course is from Real
Oh,
Housewives and
love
Snowfall,
Eileen.
and she starred in the original House on Sorority Row. And I remember we had just filmed. We worked on it, and I was like, "Oh, Eileen, like we just filmed a remake of Sorority Row. Like, why?" She was like, "Wait, really?" She's like, well, "They didn't ask me to be in it. I would have loved to have been in it."
That is so funny. First of all, shout out Eileen Davidson.
Love her.
Love her so much. Bring her back to Real Housewives, please. The franchise needs it.
Beast.
She
What weird.
is, for an older blonde woman, she's gonna give you a run for your money. She's gonna take the money and then run with it herself. Like she is, I love that woman so much. She actually, I think she just did a recent project that just came out, and I know please don't kill me. I don't know the name of it because I haven't seen it. But my mom was watching it, and I walk into her room, and I always bother my mother, and I look at the TV, and I'm like, Mom, do you know who that is? And she's like, No. And I was like, first of all, ew. Like, you're watching an icon right now. And she's like, well, I mean, I know like some of her work. And I'm like, no, she was a Real Housewife. Like, get it together.
I mean,
And
Susan from Days of Our Lives.
oh
I
yes.
Susan and also Kristen. I love her in Young and the Restless. She won 2 Daytime Emmy Awards for 2 different characters. That's how good she is.
Yep. Very true.
Yeah. But yeah, so with the original, they really kind of it's the same with My Bloody Valentine of staying true to the original.
But also giving it like that facelift for like the modern times.
And they did that by putting Audrina as like the one who gets killed off first, which sets off the whole chain of revenge.
Yes. And it really, it makes me think of Scream in like the now I love reality TV, so I'm not gonna shit on it at all. And I'm not gonna, boost her up too much, but I do love Audrina, always have, always will. And it reminds me of Scream with having like Drew Barrymore be the opening kill and to kind of bring the audiences in, right? Because you have this mega reality star, because at the end of the day, that's what she was, Audrina, not Drew. um, and she's publicized, she's promoted, she's on the poster, she's on this, she's on that, and then she gets the axe within the first, what, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think it's so smart when um horror movies do that, because one, as I said, 2009, as you stated, The Hills, huge show. Like, if you were any tween girl or gay, you were watching The Hills and you were invested, you loved it, you watched it, you worshipped it, and if you didn't, who the fuck are you? Because where were you during those times? Because I know for me, I was like, I was so invested in The Hills, I should probably be studied.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
So
I remember, like, and I will never forget, like, LC is like iconic. The only thing to do is like forgive and forget. So I forgive you, and I'm gonna forget you. And like, I just, anyway, yeah. So
so
we have
dramatic.
so dramatic, but so good. Like,
So
and
good.
also so bad that you have to love it.
Yeah. So with Sorority Row, it it was filming the same year as My Bloody Valentine, which was 2008, and I think that it was around either August, September, or October. Or I'm thinking like September was whenever they were doing that. And my really, really, really good friend, Lauren Lavish, she was the main stand-in for, I think it was her and another girl. They were the stand-in for the whole kind of all the girls in the sorority. So she sort of got the Jensen Ackles treatment. And also it was nice to I was only on it for one day, and I went back and I I, I saw all these original like crew members, very local crew members, from My Bloody Valentine. So it was like a little mini reunion, which was nice. But I a funny story is that I remember, so they put the scar on my hand. They do like a little special effect for my hand because I think that the director said they're trying to make you think, is it the the brother still alive, or is it the boyfriend, is the boyfriend who was the murderer, is he still alive? It's one of those. That's how they were trying to do that with the hand, and I was like, that's so cool. But also remember I put I put my hands in my pockets and somehow smudged the scar. And the makeup director, I think is, I can't remember the name at the moment, but he reminded me of the character from Family Guy, like the way he would talk. He came up to me and goes, "Oh, you smudged the hands. Oh no, oh no, oh no, I gotta fix that. Oh no." He's like, you can't put your hands in your pockets. Don't put your hands in your pockets. And I just remember, I was like, I will put my hands in my pockets. But yeah, that was a fun day of shooting. And I was like, I'm gonna go see this movie. And it was my very first month of moving back to New York City. So I was officially living in New York City. And I remember I was dating this guy, and we went to go to the movie theater in Kew Gardens. So you know how like horror movies have like the ending and then they have like another ending. So
Mhm.
people started leaving. They started to leave because they thought that like, okay, the movie's over, the credits are, they're gonna come up any second. And I think I like got out of my seat and I was like, don't leave, there's more. No, 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 wait. You're gonna see my hands. Those are my hands. I'm right there. So funny. And I remember I saw the
That is,
hands and I was like, I made the movie. I made the
and then you're like, okay, everybody, you can leave now.
I'm
We're
like,
good.
now,
Thank you for your
now you can
time.
go. Now you can go. I'm like, I didn't put my hands in my pockets.
It took a lot of constraint for
Right.
me to get that scene right. So you will sit and stay and watch it. Thank you.
Yeah, but shout out to Lauren because I was like, so what is this movie like? Is it like the original? She was giving me the lowdown. She was like, there's this one scene, this one girl. All I'm gonna say is bottle. And I was just like, ooh,
Oh,
bottle. And so when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's what she was talking about. Oh, that's a nasty way to go. But that's why you love horror movies.
it really is such a. First of all, I will say Sorority Row, I think, is very underrated in the horror community. I think it's become more of a cult classic than a mainstream success. um, I personally love it. I've probably seen it 20, maybe more times, and now with us talking about it again, I definitely want to go back and rewatch it. Same with My Bloody Valentine. But with that being said, have you heard the news of the sequel that is supposedly in the works?
Or Sorority Row, right?
Yes.
Isn't that crazy? I mean anything's possible, I guess. I mean, I thought it would have been for My Bloody Valentine, but hey, anything's possible. I guess that but my only question is it going to be a remake of a remake or is it going to be a sequel to the remake? Like what is it going to be?
So as of now, I'm hearing that it's a sequel to the remake,
Ooh,
and they're bringing back. Um, I don't want to get her name wrong, so I'm just gonna say the main girl.
Jenna.
Yes, Jenna. There it is.
Jenna, I don't like the last name. I'm like do not Jenna. She
It's
was in
not Dewan.
the Step Up movies. Was she in the Step Up movies?
Yes, she was.
Yes. And also
Um,
Rumor Willis.
yes, I believe she's coming back as well.
Nice.
Who I love her. And I don't think there's much on the premise or what it's going to necessarily be about, but I'm excited regardless. I think technology's come a long way. I think horror has come a long way. I think we're all due for a good slasher. Um, Everything is now so like meta and very woke, for lack of better terms, that it's like I find myself not really having much fun at horror movies these days, even though I will say I just saw Immaculate. If you haven't seen it, please go see it. If you are religious, it might pull a couple strings left or right for you, but so much fun. It's the most fun I've had in a horror movie for a very long time. And Sydney Sweeney is the new Scream Queen. Quote me on that. Hate me for it. I don't really care. She has a set of pipes on her that will go down in horror history. I will just say that.
Love that. I love hearing that.
She is just everyone go see the movie. Maddie, go see the movie if you haven't seen it,
Okay. I
please.
know I haven't seen I think the last movie I saw in a theater horror wise was Thanksgiving. Oh, disgusting. But I loved
Yeah,
it.
that was so gross.
But
I saw it from home, and I was glad I saw it from home because the kills on that were gross. That was
yeah,
hard.
and you knew going into like who the director was, and also I think that with the horror genre in the 1980s, there was just so many slasher films, and then I feel like in the mid 80s that kind of um, died away a little. Not no pun intended, but like it died, and then you got a lot of like supernatural horror films, and then that went away, and then the slasher genre came back, and then that went away again, and then you got, but now with Netflix, with all the streaming, with Hulu, Peacock, Shutter, so many Freevee, Tubi, everything that you can watch. Now it's like a mix. You can get like there's as many slasher films out there as there are supernatural films. Like you could just it's like going to the video store in the 80s or the 90s and sort of going through that genre of the horror and just seeing all those like movie boxes and but now it's digital, everything's digital. So I have to wonder like what is next for this genre.
I agree, and honestly, I think that's a perfect way to wrap this up. What is next for the horror genre? Um, yeah, I mean, I think that kind of wraps up today's episode. Um, I really want to say thank you to you, Maddie, for doing this episode with me. Um, as I said before, I was pleasantly surprised when you reached out. Um, this was fun. I love the whole behind the scenes aspect of it. It's my first time speaking with someone who has been physically on set and part of, these iconic, classic horror movies that everyone knows and loves. And if you haven't seen either of these movies, please go see them. They're great. You'll get to see Maddie's hands at the end of Sorority Row. So don't stop the movie after the final scene. Keep going.
It's a good like 10 seconds, let me tell you.
It's okay. It was those 10 seconds mean a lot when you can't put your hands in your pants, okay?
That is true. Don't put your hands
And
in your pockets.
yeah, don't put your hands in your pockets. It leads to ruining everything, as
Yeah.
Maddie has found out. So just keep your hands out, enjoy life with your hands free. um, Definitely give Maddie a follow on Instagram at mprestonnyc, correct?
That is correct. And I also have a website, matthewpreston.me.
We love that. Be sure to follow the Final Pod on Instagram at the Final Pod. The website has actually just went live as well. It's thefinalbrand.net. You can keep up with the episodes as well as contact me, your lovely host. If you want to suggest any movies, scary stories, kind of anything you want to connect with me on personally, you can shoot the contact information onto the website and we can connect from there. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Maddie, again for this. This was so much fun. Um, Definitely want you back. I think this
I
was
had
so cool.
No, I had a blast because you are so creative and you're always creating things. And I just remember saying to myself, I want to work with you on something. So when I saw that you were doing this podcast, I was like, do you, I have some horror background experience. I was like, why not? I was like, I was thinking maybe you're too busy for me. I don't know, but thank you for having me on because I love horror as much as you do. So this was just so much fun to talk about things that I love and also kind of like going back into the past because, that was so many years ago and so many pounds ago. And I loved it. I loved that whole year was one of my favorite. Oh 08, I feel like 08 to 2010. That whole, for me in my life, like that was an amazing time. So thank you for letting me sort of dive back into it.
Of course, and thank you. And I'm never too busy for you, and I'm never too busy to talk about horror, okay?
Of course.
So we'll definitely link up again. Yeah, that was fun. Until then, stay safe and remember the final scare is always the deadliest. Keep it spooky, everyone, and we'll be back soon enough. Thank you again, Matt.
Bye.
Bye.